Thank you for joining us on the beautiful shores of Lake Superior. My name is Ashley Preem.
And I'm Erin Moyer, and we're co-directors of Thunder Bay's Eco Superior.
Eco Superior is a passionate and mission-driven nonprofit organization offering meaningful environmental programs and services in the city of Thunder Bay and beyond. Welcome to Spotlight Features Environmental Insights. Today, we will be sharing inspiring stories from across Canada of individuals who are paving the way for a more sustainable and environmentally conscious future.
In the spirit of truth and reconciliation, we respect, honor, and acknowledge that this production was recorded on the lands of the Anishinaabe people of Fort William First Nation, signatory to the Robinson-Superior Treaty of 1850. New and innovative technology often helps people create more efficient ways of doing tasks. For Edward Granger of Fort McMurray, Alberta, bringing in a more sustainable way of growing food was his way of giving back to his northern community.
Oh, I love farmers. Farmers are the best. I'm married into a farm family. I want to be a farmer, you know. I see myself as, I don't identify as a farmer yet, but farmers are the salt of the earth. They're the people who feed us. Environmentalism, to me and my wife, it's important. It's something that we talk about daily, we think about, something that we want to impart on our family, our kids, but we want to have a more of a tangible approach. We want to be good stewards of the land. We want to leave this place better than when we showed up. Give back. We've taken a lot. If we're talking about traditional farming continuing as it goes, like, we have to reevaluate the situation. It needs to change in a positive way. We look at the food miles to get a head of lettuce that come from the south, to have 12 gallons of water per singular head of romaine. It just doesn't make any sense. So we decided to approach that, to address that issue, and grow our own food here and sell it locally. Closed environment agriculture is exactly what you think it would be. It's growing food inside in a closed environment, simulating the sun using LED lights or otherwise, and making the perfect environment for whatever crop you're growing happen inside. So the way we approach farming now, modern vertical farming, is to have a mass amount of food in a much smaller footprint. So this is where the magic will happen. Pretty exciting, of course. Barren, clean, but soon it's going to be full of life, full of greenery. And this is where we're going to be harvesting food for our community. So in a vertical farm, everything that we do is controlled. We don't use herbicides, we don't use pesticides. Everything is very exact to the millimeter of what that plant needs. There's no runoff. Whatever it does run off is repurposed and reused again. Nothing is being spilled into the environment. Nothing is being just absorbed by the surrounding area of what a farm exists in traditionally. It does solve a lot of problems, but it opens up new ones. And a big one is energy. Where's the energy going to come from? A big goal for indoor farming overall, vertical farming industry, is to be sustainable. And a lot of indoor farms looking at solar, wind, and geothermal. Once these farms become independent of the grid, they're able to provide a service to the community, knowing that if the grid does interrupt or go down, the food will still be produced. It'll still be here. It's a large, complex situation we're dealing with here, obviously. I'm happy to be a part of a small section of that. It will free up some land. It will help with the drought. It will stop pesticides from being used. It will have a safer product for your family. But vertical farming isn't the save-all, that's for sure. My wife and I are so excited to start this farm up, you know. to provide for our family, to provide for the community. And we also think that we can be an example to the youth. And I think if we can proof of concept for young people, they can see that there's a path of career and maybe produce some future farmers.
Choosing more plant-based food options is a great way to be more earth-friendly. Worldwide meat production is a leading contributor to climate change and causes twice the pollution of production of plant-based foods. Switch to plant-based meals Monday through Friday and check online for easy and delicious vegan and vegetarian recipes. Looking for some tasty protein-rich meat alternatives? Try beans, nuts and seeds, soy products, and plant-based meat products. Many plant-based foods naturally contain calcium. These include dark leafy greens like kale, collard greens, and spinach, as well as broccoli, oranges, and almonds. Healthier plant-based meals make for healthier people and the planet. Our next story comes from Nanaimo, BC, where warmer waters and acidification on the west coast has had a severe impact on the shellfish industry. Dr. Timothy Green and students from the Vancouver Island University Marine Field Station are working on a way to make a better oyster.
Globally, shellfish production has increased by 20%. Unfortunately for British Columbia, our production has gone down by 20%. Oysters really are impacted in a big way by climate change. We have these two stresses. Ocean acidification, which is where the CO2 is being absorbed by the ocean, lowering the pH and preventing the shellfish from being able to build their shell, their calcium carbonate shell. As well as these marine heat waves, which are incredibly stressful to the oysters. You know, they're not used to having rapid changes in their temperature. It disrupts their metabolism and then makes them more susceptible to disease. One of the things that we're doing at Vancouver Island University is trying to really understand how do oysters adapt to these changes, and then using that knowledge to breed better strains of shellfish for our local industry. I grew up on the ocean. I had the chance to do oyster farming as a high school student, and I absolutely loved it. And from that day on, I always wanted to be an oyster farmer. My parents told me to go off to university, where I discovered you could actually do fish farming and aquaculture, and I've never looked back.
We'll go do the magic.
So we're really trying to make the shellfish industry sustainable. We have what we call a pedigree breeding program. We create lots and lots of pair-mated, single mum, single dad family. It's like a big pedigree tree. So every single oyster in the program has got a little tag that's adhered to the outside of the shell that allows us to understand who's its parents, as well as who's its brothers and sisters, and its aunts and cousins, etc. And then those animals are placed out in the field, and every couple of months we take measurements, record if it's alive or dead, as well as its growth rate, its shell shape, its shell color. And then we also do sieve testing, where we will take individuals from out of the family and do a disease challenge or ocean acidification challenge to see how that family performs. So it's a huge amount of data that we generate to actually assess, does that oyster have the correct genes? And then we make crosses based on their estimated breeding value, create a fast-growing, high-surviving oyster for our industry.
We'll put 1 million eggs into each tank, and then we add the sperm to fertilize. That works out to roughly about 4 larvae per milliliter.
We're really interested in trying to take the knowledge that we've learned and apply that to scallops. We also want to understand, how ocean acidification and marine heat waves impacting other species such as clams. Again, we have a very long history of clam farming. The First Nation communities have been doing this for thousands of years. We want to understand, how does those systems, as well as combining maybe some improved genetics, can get a resurgence in clam farming on our coastline.
Today we made 12 million baby scallops. We expect about 80% of those to fertilise, what we call hatch, and become little free swimming larvae.
I'm really excited to say that, when I arrived 6 years ago, 4 out of every 5 oysters succumbed to mortality before harvest. We've now managed to get that mortality rate down to 20%. So that's worth millions and millions of dollars to our local economies.
Aquatic invasive species are a big issue for Northwestern Ontario's biodiversity and for people who enjoy fishing. Species such as rusty crayfish are invasive to Ontario and eat large amounts of aquatic vegetation. They outcompete native crayfish and destroy spawning habitats for native fish. The round goby is another invader in Lake Superior. They are aggressive predators and eat native fish eggs. Round goby may be even linked to disease outbreaks in Great Lakes fish and birds. Both species have been linked to the decline or loss of native crayfish and sport fish populations. It only takes a few individuals to start a new population, so it's important to be careful. Your bait bucket could contain invasive fish, invertebrates, plants, or diseases. You may not be able to see them, but tiny organisms could be hiding in there. It is illegal to dump bait within 30 meters of the shoreline, so be sure to take a long walk before dumping your bait. David Spies is a passionate skier who enjoys exploring the great outdoors of Thunder Bay. As a student of environmental law at Lakehead University, he is dedicated to promoting positive climate action to preserve the natural beauty of our planet for future generations to enjoy.
One of the biggest impacts is that the season is getting significantly shorter, less days on the snow, and in the world of first ascents and descents, we're now starting to hear about last descents, where places that you could ski before are not getting snow coverage anymore and might never be skied again. It's disappointing. It's really heartbreaking to see that the natural world is changing as quickly as it is due to our impact on it. It makes me want to pursue any path forward to find a way to protect those natural areas and to reverse the effects that we're having at the moment. My name's David Spies, and I'm studying environmental law and Indigenous rights at the Ybor-Alaskan Faculty of Law. I focus on the intersection of environmental law and its actual boots on the ground kind of implementation in the Canadian landscape. I'm passionate about environmental protection because the natural environment is the best place on planet Earth. It's where we came from, it's where we belong, and it's where I escape to when I need to. And if it's not there for me to enjoy and for future generations to enjoy, I think that's a very large shame.
At this time of year, normally this entire side of the resort is open, but at the moment only 2 advanced runs are. There's not enough of a significant snow base for them to operate everything at the moment, which is unusual for this time of year. Even in this area here, we normally would have had a much larger base at this point in time, but there's just been so very little snowfall this year that we haven't had that opportunity.
Protect Our Winters organizes the community and voices across the nation to come together to argue for climate advocacy and a more positive solution to our climate crisis. I started up the chapter here in Thunder Bay, where I've been able to gather community members to share ideas and look at the issues that are currently facing our region and understand what a good path forward would be for advocacy and change in rules, municipal legislation, and things of that sort. It's seeing the passion in people when I talk to them, and my friends and family and new people that I meet who have these interests and are unsure about how to take the next step forward, and this work allows me to help them take that next step and understand what they can do to create a positive impact. I feel like the news cycle and the modern era is all negativity and that negativity sells, but that has a drastic impact on how people feel about the potential for success in an area or even just how they mentally prepare themselves to understand an issue, and that we need to change that narrative to be more positive. There needs to be an understanding that we can fight this. There is lots of opportunity out there to create positive change, and we can't just focus on the negatives of everything. There's so many positives that we need to be producing and showing people and understanding that it's out there and it's not all bad. In the future, I wish to see a world where we recognize the intrinsic relationship that humans have with nature and it garners a significant amount of more respect and understanding, and that we change the way that our systems operate to work in conjunction with those natural relationships and move away from this focus on extraction and profit over people.
Walking and being in the forest is good for us. Forests are restorative environments, and there is growing research exploring the measurable benefits on our health and healing. Being in the boreal forest offers benefits for our physical, mental, emotional, and for some, even spiritual wellness. Taking a break from life's demands and related stress and intentionally being in nature, attuning to our senses and the surrounding beauty is good medicine. Consider finding an organization that offers forest therapy. Forest therapy is an evidence-based therapeutic practice that connects people to forest environments through gentle, sensory-based invitations. We are encouraging everyone to swap screen time for green time because it's good for you. We invite you to spend time or walk in the nearby forest trails, river paths, or shores of the Great Lakes and simply be silent, go slow, think less, feel more.
Water is finite. Water is essential to all of us. Water is unfortunately considered a commercial good, and we are struggling between investors who want to make a profit from water and the needs of communities who depend on that water not only for their use but for the use, 7 generations out and producing food and all of these other things. So for so many reasons, water extraction is a very concerning process. And anyone who knows me in my professional career knows I have been absolutely dead set against water extraction schemes. What's a nice girl like you doing with a water bottling plant, right? I moved to Fanny Bay in 2021, and I was very surprised to find when I chose this lovely little house that attached to it was a small water bottling plant. It wasn't part of the discussions, it wasn't part of the negotiations, it wasn't part of the, it was there. And when I became aware of it, I thought, water plant, oh my God, we'll turn it into something else, make a nice garage. And then when I came over here and I talked to Ken Giles and his partner Lorena, who had run this little water plant for 20 years, they were saying how there were people in Denman and Hornby who had been relying on this water for years because they didn't have water, and new to the area I wasn't all that aware of the water resources individual households had, and I thought, well, I wonder if there's a way to do it right. What would doing it right look like? I'm a professional agrologist, resource economist, a policy wonk. My wheelhouse is government regulation and the effect of private sector performance. I have been a journalist for 20 years, writing opinion columns in support of Canada's farmers and supply management systems. And I was fortunate enough to take a second master's in cooperatives. I thought, here, I've got this degree in co-ops. What am I doing with it? So I went down that rabbit hole for a while, and coming back up, we have formed a water bottling cooperative. There's all sorts of people, all I have to do is stick a straw in the ground and pull up some water and I can make some money. And there's a lot of licenses that are going forward. So what does the provincial government do with that? How do they decide, is this one okay? Is this one not okay? I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was this tiny perfect model that the government could point to and say, well, here's an example of something we do like. Here's an example of a water extraction which is looking at the health of the aquifer. It's looking at the health of the ecosystem. It's considering and working with the neighbors. It's engaged with the local water stewardship. It's going to be like a little experimental farm for the aquifer. We're going to put in some sensors down one of the wellheads to monitor the groundwater resource, to gain a lot of understanding of the health of the water beneath us, and the ecosystem, the fish, the environment, all of that has a priority rights as far as the co-op is concerned to the water. So we will be making sure through this monitoring process that we are not exceeding the capacity of the aquifer or doing any damage to any of the users of that aquifer. And it's not doing it for a profit, it's doing it for basically social capital, community good. Capitalism is just rapacious, and it will go and go and go until the resource runs out, and then we'll go and do something else. But co-ops are there for the long term. Co-ops are there for the people. Co-ops are there for the community. Humans are at the center of co-ops, and profit is at the center of capitalism. Only more pressure is going to be placed on regulatory authorities to allow water extraction as water becomes more and more scarce, and it's like air, right? We need it. In my mind, it's sort of like the community well. If we have a lot of water going under this property and there are people who need water and we can make it available to them at what I call a social capital price and not do any damage to the ecosystem, to the neighbors' wells, to all of that sort of stuff, why not? They're really the organizational form of the future. We just have to get there.
Spotting a 5-foot bird in their yard surprised this family of Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. They later discovered it was one of the only 800 remaining whooping cranes in the world. This led the family to transform 71 acres of their land into a natural habitat for plants and wildlife.
I mean, it's not every day a whooping crane just shows up on your doorstep. And so we figured, maybe it's a bit of a calling that that this is what we're supposed to do with this land, because we had no other plans. And so let's roll with it and see what happens. We moved out here because we liked the land, we liked the wetland, we liked the idea of being out in the country, but we had all of this land and we had no idea what we were going to do with it. We had no plans. And so we kind of just sat on it for a while, and then one day we looked out the back window and we saw a 5-foot tall bright white bird, a whooping crane, out in the field. And so it's like, that seems important. And so we did a little bit of research, and that's one of about 800 whooping cranes in the world. And so it thought that this land was important for some reason. And so that really inspired us to start learning more about the land, to figure out, if a whooping crane is using it, what else might be here using the land that might be an endangered or threatened species. So I'm an anthropologist and my husband is an engineer, and so we don't have any biology background. I definitely did not know that was a whooping crane, and I didn't know about any of the other species that we have out here. And so the last 4 years has been quite the learning curve for us. The purpose of the project, I suppose, is that we're restoring 71 acres of former cropland and turning it back into native prairie habitats.
That's early.
Oh, it's super exciting. We track everything, so we keep track of what we're finding, and then as soon as we find something new, we do a bit of research about it to see, why did it decide to grow here? Has it always maybe been here and we never found it? We have a pretty good handle on the species that regularly use the site, so if we see something new, it's exciting because it means more biodiversity is coming back to the land. Right now on these 80 acres, we've observed over 150 wildlife species and about 90 native plant species. It's important to have these pockets of natural areas, and then eventually and ideally we would have systems of pockets of natural areas that are all connected, but without those, then there's nowhere for these species to exist. There's so few spaces left where wildlife can just grow as it was meant to grow or live as it was meant to live. There's so much interference with the natural processes, and so we just have a little patch of land, but if we're able to provide just a little oasis where that can continue happening, it's really important to us to be able to do that.
Did you know that 1 out of every 3 mouthfuls of food we eat is made possible by pollinators? Many pollinator populations are in decline due to loss of habitat, loss of food sources, pesticides, disease, and climate change. Want to be a pollinator pal? Plant native species and avoid hybridized plants. Provide 3 seasons of flowering to support pollinators that are active early or late in the year. Plant flowers in groupings as pollinators are less attracted to single plants. Leave bare, mulch-free ground in sunny, well-drained areas to protect nesting sites. Allow leaves and broken branches to remain in an area of your yard so that insects can overwinter. Leave the spring yard cleanup until insects have emerged.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Spotlight Features Environmental Insights.
We hope you're inspired for your own mission to make a positive impact for our planet. I'm Ashley Preem.
And I'm Erin Moyer.
Thanks for watching.